I'm going to have a couple of videos here about the Apostolic Oneness movement, in particular the Apostolic Life churches and the Greater Bible Way temples of the Apostolic faith located throughout Michigan. Now I'm doing this because the Holy Spirit moved me to, and because some of the things that are happening to my family I'm not blaming entirely, but they start at the pulpit of these churches. And the Apostolic Lives, they're fairly new, but they came out of the Greater Bible Way Temple of the Apostolic Faiths. That's where they started until it looks like some changes took over, some leadership changes. There's much more interesting stuff, but I'm not going to put that here. I'll save that for a little candy in my pocket, so to speak. But some very interesting things regarding the leadership changes and the legal transfers, etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is, this church is heavily centered around the prison system in Michigan, especially Jackson Prison, and it's heavily centered around nursing homes, veterans nursing homes, care for people who are mentally or physically incapacitated. This church has a great deal of investment and recruiting within these areas. Like I said, also the prison. People coming out of prison, halfway rehab, and their spouses and their children, the whole gamut. And I've only known one or two people in this church system, but I have a family member that's been in one for 20 years, and my mother was there for a couple of years, then she left and got involved with another religious group. I mean, if I had to choose between the two of them, I would probably choose the one that she left. They're a lot more benign than the one she's involved with now. Like I said, the names have changed, and they have a lot of changes with different legal stuff and leadership. But essentially, on paper, the leadership has changed, but it's still the same. They just give themselves new titles. The very thing that Jesus criticized of the Pharisees, the very same thing. But anyway, you don't want to group you don't want to group people together just because of, race, religion, sect, denomination, ethnic background, etc. I'll just go from my experience of these groups and the ones that I have experience with. And that's it. I won't go outside of the ones that I have experience with and my opinion about my experience regarding them. But I will say that I don't like how I see they may practice shunning, but they won't put it on paper. But it appears they practice shunning, and their shunning is nothing like the Amish or the rare Mennonite church that shuns. Or let's see, who else shuns? Quakers, very rare, extremely rare. Who else shuns? I think some of the German Baptists do. Moravians, I think they do. Anyway, there's a few groups that shun. Jehovah's Witnesses shun. So I don't know if they do or not. I've never seen it on paper. But what do they call them? Backsliders, I believe is what they call them, backsliders. Or there's another term they use too. I mean, backsliders is a lot more. You see that in Baptist circles, but they do use it as well. But there's another term they use, but I forget what it is. But anyway, from what I've seen, my experience with them, the group can be very. They will self-police and they will self-intimidate. And sometimes people will be placed in situations. This is the same kind of stuff that Jim Jones did. Not to equate them as Jim Jones type, religion or Jim Jones type manipulation, but it's a similar tactic. Get people, in a position where if they reject or they complain or they rebel, you've got them wrapped right around your finger. Because if you yell, hey, real loud, because of the position you have them in, there's nothing they can do. That's the same exact kind of thing that you see, one of the few things good about Me Too, I know somebody very, very well who was abused, who didn't need the movement, and this person confronted his abuser with his girlfriend when he was in college, and he didn't need a movement. He said, he forgave him, and when the guy tried to say, well, what was it? I think he said something to him like, well, your family's messed up, or whatever, or something like that, and the guy said, don't. And he's like, just know that you're forgiven because Jesus Christ forgave him and gave him, a chance at new life. And, through baptism. And that he gave him the same chance, but if he ever heard of anything, he would hunt him down. And he would make sure that he went to prison where he didn't go before, because he's a good plead outer. But anyway, so, and I see a lot of people that I've known that have been Me Too'd, or that have Me Too'd people, and I don't see anybody getting healing, especially the victims. No healing. Matter of fact, they get more radicalized and more angry. And I see getting a lot of healing is the law firms, the investigators. They're getting rich. But the people that I know that have been Me Too'd or have, Me Too'd someone, I see both. I see both doing worse. So I support victims. I don't necessarily support the movement, and I'm not alone. I'm a nobody. Some of the people from Hollywood have said that they think that it's better to support the victims because the movement's spinning out of control, and the people who are benefiting from it are not the people who should be. It surely shook Hollywood upside down. But one of the good things to come from this movement is the fact that we learn how dangerous it is to create abusive environments. When we put it in our theoretical framework of our religion to humiliate people, to teach humility, that's the same environment where abuse thrives. So even I try to remind people in Catholic and Orthodox circles, yes, suffering is redemptive. Yes, suffering unites us to Christ. But we mustn't forget that we're also the redemptive church who's redeemed by his resurrection. That's also a key part, not just the death. There's two sides to it. And once somebody really, really dives into Judaism, and they really dive into the whole idea of Mashiach and what the type of thing that a Mashiach would bring, not just physically, but if we put it into a Kabbalistic framework, the kind of power and delivery that Kabbalistic Messiah, and this is something that, even very few Orthodox and very few Hasids will jump into is the idea of the Mashiach as a Kabbalistic power. That's some powerful stuff there. We are also a redemptive church. And every time the liturgy takes place, every time the Mass happens, that's renewed. That Kabbalistic redemptive power is re-energized and redispersed out into the universe for us to embrace and take into ourselves. But anyway, I got off on a tangent here. But we shouldn't have to manipulate or hold things over people or create an atmosphere where people are controlled by a group. One thing we've learned about from another movement is, the Facebook group movements, when people are creating Facebook groups that are so controlling that they become, what is it, I forget my stuff now, high focus, high control group, that it becomes dangerous. Because if you sneeze without saying the right thing after you sneeze, that the group is deemed the appropriate response to a sneeze, you're shunned, stalked, maybe even hurt, or locked up somewhere in the desert or in the woods, in a shed, until you properly realign yourself. Religion can be good, or it can be used for evil. And which is why I'm making this video, because my experience of some of these groups, I found they could be really destructive. And, you can blame it on the people in the pew, but ultimately the person that's preaching from the pulpit has the most control over a church or a mega church than anyone else. The person opening the door gives the impression, they give you the feeling walking in. The person preaching from the pulpit or the lectern, that's the person that has the most authority and the most power. Regardless what kind of groups we have, councils, committees, projects, regardless. And so my experience of some of these groups, with the effect I've seen on people, particularly my family, is concerning. And the direction that they've gone, to alienate themselves and to alienate others, is still concerning. And the fact of the matter that some of these people from these groups have targeted my family, my immediate family, me, my daughter, my daughters, even my daughters abroad, that's concerning to me. And so this is the beginning of some videos about them. I don't want to judge all of them together. I'm just going to talk about my experience and some of the dangers and some of the destruction that's happened to my family for the past 25 years. And the fact, that some of these people that are in leadership in these groups, they hold it over people. And I'm not talking like a carrot over a horse at the horse track. I'm talking like a ton of bricks over your head. Thus begins a new phase. Us looking at the Apostolic Oneness movement, particularly in the Tri-County area of Michigan. This is just the beginning. There's other groups and agencies we're going to look at too. Because one thing that I promised to the Lord is that all of the heck we've went through, all of the thorns and all of the bricks dumped on our heads, we're going to use it to give back, to build his kingdom, to show those false prophets, and to protect the innocent.